Most of us are anyway. Some of us are products of gay people, but I mean, a gay person and a lesbian who had artificial insemination or something in a surrogacy or whatever. But my point is, we are products of heterosexuality. And because of that, I mean, to think that we're so different than them doesn't make sense since we're raised by them anyway. Our life is, as gay people, is completely normal. And it's no different really than a typical heterosexual living their life every day. We honestly have the same dreams, the same hopes, the same fears, basically as a heterosexual couple does. And so we want the same things, we want a house over our heads. We want to be safe. We want to have enough money in the bank to do what we want and what we need. And we want to have a family, most of us, to some degree. If we don't want to have a family, want to have a career or whatever. We all want the same things because why? We're all human. So, if people would just stop looking at us in these divisive manners and start looking at us as not just individuals, but as one human race, and that applies across the board to homophobia, to transphobia, to racism, to anti-Semitism or religious zealotry or whatever. I mean, all of these things would be cured if we had a more global view, a more world view, instead of an I view or a me view, a view just about what I can get and about who and what I am, and that's all that matters, or what's immediately in front of me. And that's the problem with the world. In my opinion, that's the main problem. The world would not have most wars would not occur if we had a worldview that way. If that were taught in schools, if that were taught in religious belief systems, and people really thought of things as one, then it would change. And I've often said and thought that if we ever have aliens visit us or something, or they make themselves known, publicly, and they come down, I don't know, have a press conference or something, or it's just somehow unequivocally known that there are aliens out there and they're coming down, they're visiting our planet. That alone will bring us together as nations and as human beings, because it'll be us against them, or us on our side and trying to get to know them or whatever. So we're going to have to learn to do it eventually, one way or the other, and it's just a matter of time. So I think people who do think that way have a much bigger heart and are typically liberal, by the way, not usually Republican or conservative. And it's a big. It's not a lot to ask, but people seem to find it to be a lot to ask. Anyway, the other thing I was going to talk about before I go is the trans teen Leila Alcorn. She was a trans teen, as I said, male to female trans, and she actually killed herself. You probably heard about the story already, just days after Christmas. And she said she wanted her death to mean something to the world. And the problem was that she had come out to her parents, I think a year or two before or something, and they had told her that it was unacceptable and that they did not take it well at all. And they forced her to go into conversion therapy, one of those horrendous places where they try to force your gay out, essentially. And they also took took her off her Tumblr account, like Facebook and everything. She had no access to the internet or friends or anything like that. No phone, nothing. So they completely isolated her away from her entire life and everything that she had known, so that they could somehow change her into something else. And this is, horrendous. I mean, it's a horrendous thing to do. That's the worst thing they could have done, because it ended up in her death. I mean, I think the parents, and some people have talked about this, and I think the parents should be held accountable in some way for what they did to their daughter. And I'm sure that they probably are sad and crying and all those things that you feel as a result of your child dying, which I will probably never know. But I think that it's, it's unfathomable that a parent would do that to their child, and when they're in such a fragile state, and when what they need the most is their love and their acceptance. they completely turn their backs on them and they isolate them. And so what else do you expect will happen? You think they're going to, just come out of the room one day. I'm straight. I'm hetero. Thank you so much, mom and dad, for making me straight. All of that tough love, quote unquote, really worked. Thanks so much. I think it's really ridiculous. And if people would just fucking allow people to be who and what they are, we wouldn't have this issue. The same thing, like I said, about humanity and people just looking at one another as human beings. If people would allow people to be themselves and stop trying to change them into what they think they should be, then there wouldn't be these kind of issues. There would be so many fewer issues in the world. And it's just so annoying and tiring. Just the way the world works is just tiring. I'm like, God, half the world is asleep. They're not paying attention to their lives and how their lives and their actions affect people around them, especially the ones that they love. And half the world recognizes it and is empathic or empathetic and actually cares about how their actions affect others. And I think I consider myself on the side that is empathetic and empathic and cares about what happens to other people in the world, especially when I cry about people I don't even know or whatever, when they die or whatever and stuff like that on TV or in reality or whatever. And I'm just like a sensitive person that way. And I care about human beings. And my way is better. I'm sorry. It's not because I am that way. I say that. It's because I know, because the way I believe about these things doesn't cause harm. The way everyone else believes and that about those things, the other half believe anyway, does. It causes people to kill themselves. It causes people to hate themselves or deny who they are, or, it's just obviously not good. So, in my opinion, the way to see if something is good or evil, if you want to put it that way, or worthy or unworthy or whatever, is what the repercussions or the consequences of the actions of the people who are behaving towards the other person or the other thing. What are the consequences of their actions? So if someone is being kind and loving and caring and accepting and fulfilling someone's needs in terms of who they are, they're going to be, the result of that is going to be someone who feels fulfilled and loved and accepted, and someone who's going to have confidence, and someone who's going to go into the world and pass that along. Whereas on the other side of the coin, if you have someone who is destructive and filled with hatred and hate and just passing that along all the time to everyone they meet and consistently trying to hurt other people and harm people just because they can or because they want to, or it's funny to them, or because they're ignorant and they don't know any better, or whatever the reason is, if they're spreading hatred and what's the word? I don't want to use the word evil because that's connotations religious, but I can think of another one. Spreading evil everywhere, then it is the end result is death and destruction and everything that's intended by hatred, everything that's intended by it. And you're left with someone who's a shell of a human being because they haven't been able to get what they need from the other human beings around them. So it seems so simple to me. Just to love each other and accept one another and just be okay. I mean, it's not like you have to always get along with people and always like people. I'm not saying that it's like kumbaya like that. That's a ridiculous thing to expect world peace in that sense. But what I mean is if you project the positive in yourself and around you, you're going to attract that, and you're also going to make a difference in people's lives in a positive manner. If you project hatred and you project disdain and so forth, you're going to project that to the people, and you're going to probably get that back in return as well, ultimately. So, I do believe what goes around comes around. If you want to call it karma, fine, but I think it's just about energy, and if you put energy out there that's good, positive, great, comes back to you. If you put energy out there that's bad, negative, and horrendous, that comes back to you as well. So why not just be a good person and help people instead of trying to hurt people, And that applies to parents of gay kids as well, or trans kids whom are just trying to be themselves, who are coming into their own. And that's the other thing. And parents not always, a lot of parents oftentimes will want their children to be mirror images of themselves or to have done what they didn't do. And both of those things may not be appropriate for that kid. They may actually need something completely different because why? They're a completely different human being. They have their own mind, their own soul, their own emotional state and mental state, and they don't think they're not the same person. They have different life experiences, and all of those things have shaped them into someone else. So to actually make someone be in your own image or try to is abusive. And so I think these parents, in my opinion, should be charged with neglect and also emotional neglect and with emotional abuse, and should maybe even go to jail. I mean, I know that sounds really harsh, but how long do you allow people to destroy their children just because they're different, just because they're gay or lesbian or bi or transgender or intersex or whatever it might be, queer, whatever they may be? How long do you allow the parents of these children to get by with it? It's been going on for centuries, and yet there really are no repercussions, and I don't understand why that is. If you are the source of the person's death, and or their sorrow and their cloud that hangs over them every day, then I think that you should be removed. They should be removed from your care. And the problem is, how do you figure out that this is going on beforehand unless the kid tells somebody, But I think something should happen to these parents. I think they should be held accountable, and I don't think that the sadness they're feeling is punishment enough. That's what I think. So, well, that's all I have to say for tonight's show. I'll be back tomorrow for show 7 of 2015's 365-day shows in a row. I'll be back tomorrow, and I thank you for listening to the show, and I'll talk to you then. Good night.